Sometimes we don't know it's happening. So today we are going to be talking about how the silent thief operates and what he steals from us, and most importantly, practical and actionable ways to fight back. To understand how to fight back, obviously, we need to know what we're fighting. We need to know how it works. So we'll be talking about the signs of stress. So basically, deep in your brain, you have a structure called the amygdala. Essentially, what it does, it's like an alarm system. Just like we have in our houses, you have alarm systems. It's basically scanning every time, integrating your senses, touch, smell, feeling, your internal thoughts, your previous memories. I'm sure we've heard of things when people say post-traumatic stress disorder, when people, based on their previous memories, trauma, or violence, they see something almost similar and they just react irrationally. So it's part of the alarm clock, alarm system in your body. So basically, it's a fight or flight system. Basically, stress response. For example, if a lion just happened to stroll into this hall, I'm very sure it will be empty within seconds. So it's a survival tool, but it's meant for acute shots, just to survive. You agree with me, our body is not built to run from a lion 24/7. It's not possible. Essentially, what happens is, unfortunately, where we are now, we have modern lions. Lions we can't run from. They are always there. Debit alert. Yeah. Sometimes you see it and yeah, the letter from HMRC. Driving in traffic. I remember when I used to work in Lagos, I was staying, it was after NYC, I was staying with my parents at Okokomaiko. I was working on Surulere. So I had to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning to beat the traffic, mile 2, go. Then on your way back, another 4 hours. I was very cranky. You're in traffic, you're just vigilant. Anybody drive anyhow, you are ready. You are stressed. You wake up in the morning, you're not in the mood. It's just chronic stress, persistent. When I moved to Ilorin a few years after, I just felt, everything was slow. Life can be like this. Just wake up in the morning. I could see a change. It was just stress, basically. So it's not an alarm system supposed to be on all the time. So we could manage it. The modern lions are there. We can't run away from it. It's nothing we can do. We just have to find a way to manage it, and that's what we'll be talking about today. So essentially, what happens when the alarm system is triggered? You have stress hormones, cortisol, adrenaline, so they are released into the body. It should supposed to be, like I said before, short bursts, you survive, you get on with your day. But when it persists for long, gradually, you start to see the effects. You might not know it's happening, but it's happening silently. Cortisol eats at your muscle. You start to build belly fat, People see you, they think you are chopping life, but life is chopping you gradually. So, it affects the way your body handles glucose, blood pressure. I remember a patient I used to have. Basically, she had very difficult to control blood pressure. She keeps a diary. She comes, you give this, give that, nothing. But once she goes to vacation to Africa, she's fine. Everything is well controlled. It's almost as if there's something about coming to the UK that just stresses her. I used to make jokes like, it seems you just don't like our face, because I don't understand. So that's what chronic stress can do. So before the next thing we'll be talking about essentially will be the 4 areas. So I'll be focusing. Stress can steal in different ways, but I'll be focusing on 4 critical areas. So mental health, your job, marriage, and your general well-being. So I'll be starting with the mental health. Yeah, so essentially, like I described, it puts you in a state of hypervigilance. You're always worried. You're always on edge. You can't relax. Anxiety, worry. You're thinking of finances. Maybe a child who is giving you problems at home. You can't switch off. You're always on edge. And over time, you become very irritable. Something little, it can happen at home, happen at work. And over time, if these things persist, like I said, it's a silent thing. You don't know it's happening. You think it's just something you do every day. Gradually, it begins to affect your concentration, your attention. The prefrontal cortex, it's an area in the front of the brain. It helps to monitor memory, your decision making, and concentration. When you are chronically stressed, you just begin to realize you can't stay on one work. You are procrastinating. You have a job deadline, but you can't just work up the motivation to do anything. There's something we call the brain fog. Basically, it's like your brain just like it stops working. You are not just in the mood to do anything. You begin to forget things, and you make mistakes. And not because you are not competent. You know what you're doing. You're just stressed. And over time, when the exhaustion persists, it's like trying to take from an empty cup. Eventually, there's nothing. You're just exhausted. And sadly, some people progress to a point where they begin to lose interest in things they once enjoyed. And you can begin to have a sense of hopelessness, a very telltale signs of depression. And if I may add at this point, mental health issues should not be stigmatized. It's not a weakness. It's not a lack of faith. We should avoid the spiritualization trap. We are humans first. Anyone struggling, we should be able to help. Our first response shouldn't be pray and fast. We should find a way to support each other, like with practical and actionable plans when people are struggling with their mental health. The next thing we'll be talking about is how it steals from the marriage. Generally, we take out our stress on people who are close to us, our loved ones, spouse, close friends, because they are generally our safe space. They are people close to us, people we can lash out. Having someone as a safe space is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you should have someone you can talk to. But the problem is when your safe space becomes a dumping ground, and which over time can cause a lot of friction. If I give like an hypothetical situation, a man comes from work, or a woman comes from work, they're stressed about their job, they're stressed about their finances. They just want to withdraw, sit down, maybe just watch TV, scroll on their phone. The wife senses some tension. She feels, why is he not talking? She feels rejected. She wants to press for conversation. And the guy, why is she nagging me? Just leave me alone. And that's where it starts gradually. Sometimes you can have negative attribution. Maybe he's someone who used to, on his way from work, buy things, or he takes out the trash. Maybe one day he doesn't do it. And instead of the wife to assume, maybe he forgot, she's like, he doesn't care. He doesn't care about us. And that's where the friction and fracture starts. And if it persists, physical intimacy goes down as well. And stress hormones like cortisol on their own depress libido. So if you remain chronically stressed, even without all these things, you are not even in the mood for intimacy. Ecclesiastes 4, 9-12, 2 are better than 1, for they profit from their labor. Even if one be overwhelmed, 2 can defend. So we need to be very wary of. We need to be intentional about making sure stress doesn't make our loved ones enemies. We see them as partners rather than enemies. The next thing is our jobs and career. So there's something called presenteeism. So basically, you're at work, you're just there. You're not productive. You don't really care. You just want to go through your 9 to 5 and just the 12-hour shift and get out and get on with your day. That's what stress can cause. You begin to, like I said, you begin to forget things. You make mistakes. You procrastinate. You can begin to have strained relationships with your colleagues. There's someone I used to work with. On the ward, sometimes you have very confused patients who need like a one-to-one. So I was doing the round. He was sitting with one person, and he was slipping off. And you know our people, before you know, they've escalated. So I had to go and meet him. Bros, he's a Nigerian. How far? Just chat him up, try to pep him. Do you need anything? Because I understand he was stressed. He has been doing lots of shifts, and he was exhausted. And that's what can happen when we just keep on. You just begin to make mistakes at work, and this can escalate. They put in reports, they report you. That causes more stress. You begin to make more mistakes, and it's just a vicious cycle. And this is quite peculiar in our cultural context. You know, when you jackpot, people have this extra pressure to, create this impression that you are successful. You are living the life. Things are well. You go on social media, they'll say, I came here within 6 months. I have a mortgage. I've bought a car. And you're basically living a lie because you want to keep up with the Joneses. This causes massive stress because it's an expensive lifestyle you cannot keep up with. It's just the truth. And we need to learn to have peace in contentment. 1 Timothy 6:6. Godliness with contentment is great gain. It's not only a godly principle, it's a medical prescription. Learn to unlook. Everybody is living their life. Don't carry on with your life. As long as you are progressing in your little lane, just live your life and be contented. Yeah. The next thing we'll be talking about is how it steals from our well-being, our physical health. The sleep disruption. You're worried, you're awake at night, thinking you don't sleep well. You wake up, already work is waiting for you, the stress. You're unable to cope with the stress. You come home, you can't sleep. It's the vicious cycle. It doesn't end. Chronic stress, it weakens your immune system. You are more likely to fall ill. Infections, colds, because of cortisol. So cortisol is an immunosuppressant. It damages the gut. You have people coming with, they tell you if irritable bowel syndrome. They don't know what's causing it. Stomach pain, stomach cramps. And if I may, let me stay on this topic of gut, the gut-brain axis. How your diet, how your gut health affects your mental health. So there's a vein in your brainstem that runs, a very long vein, that runs down to your gut. Basically, it serves as a traffic system. It monitors your nutrition, the gut health, and feeds back to the brain. And in good health, good vagal tone, it has a calming effect on your gut and on the brain. It's bidirectional. Once your gut is fine, your mental health is also fine. And under chronic stress, studies have shown it disrupts the gut health. Basically, the cells in your gut are supposed to be arranged in very, very tight junction to prevent unnecessary things from passing through. Stress makes it more leaky. So you have inflammatory proteins going into the blood. You have bacteria that are not supposed to go, moving into the blood. The brain senses this and becomes stressed. It affects the mood. This is scientific fact. There are good bacteria in your gut that help with digestion. They call them probiotics. I'm sure you would have heard about them. Stress disrupts them because it affects their ability to work effectively. So, and studies that have the evidence for this is in people who they've replaced these probiotics, they call them psychobiotics. So essentially you have probiotics with prebiotics. Prebiotics provide fuel for the probiotics to work effectively. And what they found is people who were given this and they took it consistently for 4 to 8 weeks, their stress markers reduced and their mental health reduced as well. And also, people who took whole foods that had short-chain fatty acids, which provide fuel for probiotics, your natural probiotics as well, they found that their mental health, their moods also stabilize. The other evidence for this, I'm sure you've heard about people doing yoga, breath exercises. So your vagus nerve runs and is very close to your diaphragm. And when people that do breath exercises, they stimulate the vagus nerve, and they find it has a very calming effect as well and affects the mood as well. So the gut-brain axis, it's a link between your diet, your dietary habits, and your mental health. So what we eat as well is very, very important. I'll be going through some of this later. I'll touch on this later when we're talking about actionable ways to fight stress. Another way it affects your general well-being is on the heart and blood vessels. This is very, very massive. Before I came to the UK, generally, when we talk about hypertension, stroke, heart attack, we think about people in their 50s, 60s, that kind of thing. When I got here, you see people 20s, 30s. I was like, what's going on here? Like, young people already with hypertension, difficult to control, already having heart attacks, and you can't really tell. No specific risk factor. A lot of them are just carrying a lot of burden on their shoulders that unnecessarily that they shouldn't be. And that's how chronic stress steals. Diabetes, cortisol, raised cortisol affects your ability to handle glucose properly. It's a risk factor for diabetes. So these are silent ways. It doesn't start, it's very insidious. You think it's something little. Then gradually, it just builds up. And you find out in your 30s, 40s, you're already dealing with unnecessary things. May God grant us wisdom. So next thing we'll be talking about will be coping strategies. The first thing I'll be touching on are the biblical principles. Exodus 20, 8 to 12. Essentially, God did all that work and he rested. So, it's a commandment. You need to rest. You need to rest. Rest can come in different ways for different people. For some, it's setting boundaries. At work, anywhere you are. Saying yes to everything is a form of self-harm. You need to set boundaries. When I work, once I get out of work, I switch off. I'm done. I'm not looking at the email. My phone goes off. Something. I'm not interested. Like, we need to set boundaries. You need to rest. It's very important. 1 Corinthians 6:19. Do you not know your bodies are the temple of God? When you rest, you honor God. It's a commandment. You need to rest. I understand we need to, life happens. You need to work, make money and everything, but we need to set aside. You need to live long to enjoy the money as well. So, practical, medical, and lifestyle measures. The first thing is to engage with your rational mind. acknowledge it when it comes, when you're snapping at a loved one, when you're beginning to make mistakes, when you're forgetting things. You need to acknowledge the feeling. I think I'm stressed. Why am I acting this way? It's one of the pathways to healing, to seeking help, to getting things better. You get home, you snap, you acknowledge, you apologize to that coworker, to your spouse. I think I'm stressed. I think this is happening. It's one of the ways to seek help and get better. We talked about breathing exercises earlier. Yeah, if you're at work, you feel acutely, I think I'm feeling pressure. Breathing exercises. In for 4 seconds, hold your breath. Out for 6 seconds. You do it repeatedly. It has a calming effect. Movement, exercise, physical activity. We've done that today already. Praise and worship. How did that feel? For me, it was uplifting. When you move, you basically metabolize cortisol. That's the way. It's uplifting. Outside church, we can make room for physical activity. 20-minute walk. You don't need to go to the gym. Make room. Don't stay inactive. We talked about diet as well. I had a very, very bad habit, which I've been working on. I stress eat a lot. When I'm stressed, I tend to eat, bad, sugary food. I'm trying to get better at that. Yeah, we need to avoid that. They wreck your gut. They wreck your health. It's not healthy at all. Whole foods, yam, sweet potato. Sister Tolo, she's the dietitian. She will know better about this thing. So, whole foods that have lots of probiotics. They are natural dietary supplements. Yogurt. There's this South Korean thing, kimchi. It's made from fermented vegetables. It's very good as well. Yeah, onions, garlic have a lot of prebiotics as well. So there are natural options. We try. Diet is very, very important for your diet. And more importantly, sleep hygiene. You need to sleep. Have a routine. Preferably without your phone. Sometimes too much scrolling. Yeah. Cool, dark, at least 8 hours. For where? Someone said for where? I know. We can try. Something I call digital fasting. It's the age of social media. We can't help it. YouTube, TikTok, we love to scroll. You know how social media is an algorithm. It kind of presents things to you based on your perceived interests. There was a day I stumbled on a TikTok post where someone sadly was bereaved and was sending a tribute to a loved one who had passed away. I engaged, looked at the comments. It was the last thing I saw before I went to bed. Next day, open my phone. The next thing is same thing. People dying. And I realized over time, it was affecting my mood. Like, what's going on? It's just sad news. So I had to make that intentional. This is wrong. So, not interested. Block. So I had to sanitize my social media. Bad news shouldn't be the last thing you see before you go to bed. Yeah. You have control. You need to work on getting things that edify, things that uplift, things that educate. Anything that depresses you or affects your mental health, just avoid. It's not good for your mental health. It's not good. It just causes stress. Even bad news on the TV, if you can, avoid it. Iran bombing and all that. It's just a cycle of bad news every day. The other thing we need to talk about is, taking breaks. work schedule, it can be quite stressful. I mean, imagine doing a 12 and a half shifts. It's it can be very hard. And what I do sometimes is try and break my work into blocks. Like have a schedule. I'm seeing people now. I'm doing admin. I'm attending to emails. Take breaks. Try and have a rhythm of the day and not break it. A time when I'm not looking at my phone, I'm just specifically looking at things so that you don't feel so much pressure. You want to just walk through 12-hour shifts like that, and you go on, you're perpetually stressed, and it just keeps going on and on and on. You need time to just distress and take breaks. And very, very importantly, is community. Community. Loneliness. I mean, we've come from Africa where it was very communal. We help each other. But we've come here where there's a tendency to want to be self-sufficient, do things on your own, be independent. No, it's not good for the health. Loneliness, the mortality is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Loneliness is a disease. It is not a flex. You need community. You need people you can talk to. And this is one we have here, church. Yeah? A place devoid of judgment, no gossip, no people comparing with anything. People where you can just be and talk to people. That's a good community. Yeah. The apostles had a big community. They helped each other. Yeah. They sold their belongings. They shared among each other. We need to make sure this place is a safe place for people. Community, it helps. It helps to distress a lot. The last thing I'll be touching on, specifically for couples, may God give us wisdom. I mean, there's no right answer for everything. Everybody, we know our spouses, we know their peculiarities, but I can only give tips. So essentially, sometimes we can give ourselves time to decompress. When people come from work, it's not maybe the time to start getting involved in a heavy conversation. Oh, what happened? Just sometimes you just cool off and talk about trivial things, focus on other things, then check in with each other regularly. How are you doing? How's work? How are you feeling? Have time away, maybe date nights, credit alerts once in a while. Very important. That really distresses me. She knows. Yeah. We need to protect our connection. It's very, very important because once that fractured, so many other things go wrong. The family breaks. There's so many factors in this country fighting to break the family unit. We need to fight back. Our community is important, and it's very important to help us to build together, to distress our health, mental health. So, closing. Stress is a thief. It's a very silent thief. It creeps gradually. Well, we don't have to let it. God has given us so many things to fight back. He gave us an alarm system. It doesn't need to be on all the time. We have the power, we have the tools to manage it. He didn't promise we weren't going to be stressed. 1 Peter 5:7, cast your burdens, cast your anxieties on me. He knows you'll be anxious, but cast it on him. We need to work on that. So essentially, we need to stop continually running our engines on red, continuing being stressed. We have a community, we have a family, we have a God we can cast our cares on. We need to work actively to take care of the temple He has given us. Our body is this temple of the Holy Spirit. We need to care for it and honor God with it. Thank you very much for listening.
My voice is loud enough. Thank you very much, Doctor. All right. For this great exposition, I'm sure we are blessed. If you are blessed, let me see your hand up. All right, thank you. So it's time for question and answer. In case you have a question you want to ask a doctor, please feel free. I'm actually thinking we could write it down, or if you think it's going to take too much time, we can just pass the mic around and take our questions. I'm sure we have loads of questions in our minds that we want to ask him, and I want to trust he's available to give us as much answers as possible. So if you have a question, please raise your hand. I think I should give number, right? Because I know some questions will birth other questions, right? And I'm sure he's also going to go deeper if we ask questions. So please feel free. One, any other person? Any other? Okay, let's start with this. Thank you.
Praise the Lord. Thank you, sir, once again. It was very informative. So I have two questions. And this is in respect to people that are close to me, but unfortunately I had lost their lives. So my question is so that we that are alive can know what to do to avoid or avert such from repeating itself. Now, the first one was a colleague of mine who was on maternity leave. She had given birth already. I think the baby was already 5 months, and from nowhere, it was headache. It's not like she was going to work. It's not like probably she was busy doing some things in the house. No, she's just, there at home, and it was just headache. And she went to the hospital. They were like, okay, it's a normal thing, because apparently she was already past postpartum, so it was not postpartum. Okay, so what is happening? What is causing the headache? Like stress. She was like, she's not stressing about anything. She's in the house, mat leave and all that. They gave her a few meds, asked her to go back home. She came back the second day, the same recurring headache. She was turned back the second time. The third time was a different person that had to see her. So they did an MRI scan and said something had busted in her brain. Before we know it, she slumped into coma. And from coma, of course, she passed. So my question is, what could have happened? Far beyond village people, far beyond, you know what I'm saying? Some people will say it has hand of life involved. It has hand of life involved, you understand? But beyond that, medically, what could have happened? That's my first question. My second question, unfortunately, I lost my cousin 4 days ago, who was supposed to clock 41 next week. And he was, because I was just received a call yesterday, and my brother was like, we lost David. Okay, what happened? So he was like, okay, some things came up. They didn't even know in time. They checked his BP, was reading 270. I understand what it means for BP to read 270. But I didn't understand what it means for typhoid to be reading 360. I don't know what that is about. So they said from typhoid, he was on oxygen, and that was it. He's well-to-do. He's not suffering, quote and unquote. He's not, you understand? Probably there's something else such a person is stressing about, which we do not know. But what could have brought such instantaneous movement that ended up their lives just like that without prior warnings? So that's my question, so that at least those of us that are here would know what to do and how to manage our health with respect to stuff like that.
We have any other question, please? Okay, sir. I think you can go.
Firstly, sorry for your loss. Yeah, it's very sad. I'll start with your cousin with the blood pressure of 270. So essentially, your normal blood pressure, optimal, should be less than 120/80. In fact, now they are shifting it lower because they do studies all the time. So at 270, essentially your heart is working like massively over time. If you think about it like, so your heart, it has vessels going like a plumbing system leading to your heart and other parts of your body. They are not used to handling that kind of pressure. So you don't get to 270 overnight. Just few, maybe in few cases, that happens acutely. Essentially, it's a gradual build up. Damage is happening. Hypertension is a silent killer. It doesn't present with symptoms. It's damaging your kidneys, it's damaging your heart, damaging your brain. By the time you are presenting in distress, things have gone far. And in that scenario at 270, which is severe hypertension, is an emergency. So many things can happen. I can't tell what happened in that court textbook because I don't have the full history. But the things that can happen is your heart can fail because the muscles have been contracting at that high pressure for so long. Eventually, it just gives up because it's a muscle. When you go and do exercise, you're building your muscles, you're building it. For the heart muscle, it gets to a point when it builds, it stretches. It's like an elastic, like a rubber band. At some point, it's growing, then it starts to lose its elasticity. Then the heart starts to fail. You can have people who have chronic heart failure come and go, but you can have something we call acute left ventricular failure. And when you have this kind of blood pressure, and they can just die very, very quickly. 2, when that builds up over time, your heart has its own blood vessels. Unfortunately, they are end arteries. So basically, they go one way, and that's all. Once they block, it's blocked. There's nothing else supplying. What I mean is, for example, in your hand now, you have 2 arteries, ulnar, radius. If something happens with this, there are connections everywhere. The hand will still be okay. For the heart, there's nothing like that. It's one leading. Once it's blocked, heart attack and that. So what happens is, with very high pressure, over time, like I said, it builds up. So you have injuries to the vessels, injuries to the cells. When you have injury, you have clots. So it's building up. We call it arteriosclerosis. It's building up. Then, when it's massively high, the clot builds up, dislodges, and blocks everywhere. That's one way. Then for the brain has the same thing, very small arteries. We call them perforating arteries, going deep into the brain. The large vessels can handle a lot of pressure. They are used to it. But the deeper ones, once it goes very high, they just pop, bleed. So multiple scenarios. And unfortunately for us, we